Why don't we all social distance a little bit because we're going to take off our masks. So we met for a little over 3 hours. I'd say on the good news front, we have gone through an exhaustive list of issues. We understand where we are and where they are on a whole bunch of issues. I think there's a lot of issues we are close to a compromised position on, but I think there's a handful of very big issues that we are still very far apart. And we've decided that we will break for the night. The president called several times while we were meeting. Mark updated him. We'll consult with him again this evening and tomorrow morning. The president's first choice is to do a deal. We've said that. If we conclude tomorrow that there's not a compromised position on the major issues, the president has alternatives and executive orders, but as he's instructed us, his first choice is to try to get legislation that will pass the House and the Senate that he can sign that helps the American people. And as we've said, we have many priorities. They're kids and jobs, liability protection for schools, universities, and small businesses, extending the PPP so many people can get a second payment, direct payments to individuals. We've put on the table several very fair compromises on enhanced unemployment. We've talked about the issue of rental evictions. We said we'd consider some payments on rental assistance as well. There's going to be some work done overnight. I think we've made a lot of progress, but again, I think on things like state and local, this is obviously a big issue. We're still very far apart on that. The president is not going to do a deal that has a massive amount of money to bail out state and locals. The president is prepared to do something for state and locals that deals with the issue of additional coronavirus expenses, deals with making sure that the first responders, the hospitals, the police, the firemen all have proper funding, and the school teachers. And we'll see. I think we always said our objective is to try to reach an overall understanding tomorrow. If the Democrats are willing to compromise and do something, I think we'll get something done. But again, we're not going to do a deal that isn't an attractive deal for the American public.
Yeah, President Trump has been personally involved multiple times today. As the Secretary mentioned, he's called 3 times while we've been meeting over the last 3 hours. I had a couple of conversations with him earlier today before he left for Ohio. I know the Secretary had a conversation with him this morning. There's nothing more important to the President of the United States than to get a deal that would actually support the millions of Americans who have, through no fault of their own, have suffered because of this virus that China unleashed on us. And as we look at trying to reach a solution, the president is right to be frustrated with Congress. We've been here now going on 2 weeks, and we still don't have a deal. And his willingness to take action through his executive powers should be applauded, because he's coming to the realization that perhaps some of our Democrats, both in the House and the Senate, are not serious about compromise and are not serious about trying to meet the needs of the American people. My frustration is that we could have passed a very skinny deal that dealt with some of the most pressing issues, and yet we've had Democrat senators, not once but twice, say no to enhanced unemployment. And I think for those that are suffering, they should be asking their Democrats in the House and the Senate, why have you failed to meet the needs that we have so rightly expressed? And so we're going to evaluate tonight. We're going to brief the president, as the Secretary talked about, but at the same time, we're still a considerable amount apart in terms of a compromise that could be signed into law.
And as Mark said, I would just say again, if we can't reach an overall, our first choice is a global deal that incorporates everything that's good for the economy, good for American workers, good for kids. If we can't do that, we are willing to do a smaller deal. We've been willing to do a short-term extension on the enhanced unemployment. We've been willing to do a short-term extension on other issues while we're negotiating. We're very concerned that these issues exist and we want solutions.
Yeah, so I think the good news for the American people is this. We're going to continue to stay engaged. The President has instructed us to do that. If that does not work, the President has instructed Secretary Mnuchin and myself to be willing to enter into a narrower deal that addresses some of the most pressing needs that are before us as a nation. And if those two things do not work, then he's prepared to take executive action on his own.
Could I ask if the speaker has said she's not interested in anything but a global deal. It's your understanding, presumably, that has not changed?
That's correct.
Okay, so you're no closer than you were 12 hours ago.
I would say we're closer on a lot of issues. We're still very far apart on some very significant issues. That if the basis is getting an overall deal done, there would have to be significant compromises on some big issues tomorrow.
Yeah, let me characterize it this way. I would think that the compromises that Secretary Mnuchin and I put forth on behalf of the President are significantly greater than the compromises that we saw from the other side of the negotiating table.
Are you closer on a top-line number, or are you still trillions of dollars apart, like yesterday?
We're still very far apart, but the issue is, and again, we're focused on a bottoms-up approach to the most critical issues, and that's what we're focused on. So in certain cases where we're apart on money, we're also apart on policy.
So what are you close on there? You said
I don't want to go through. I would say again, I think there's significant areas that we're very, very close on.
unemployment insurance.
We've put a proposal that we think is a very fair compromise, and again, if they're willing to move, we can close out that issue.
Did you make it sound as if tomorrow is some sort of go, no-go moment? Is that what we should?
Well, the American public want action. So again, we're not going to just keep on coming back every day if we can't get to a deal. We've said by the end of the week we wanted to reach an agreement on the major issues. Obviously, we'll always listen to proposals going forward, but the President wants us to get a deal, or he wants to move on and he'll take other actions.
And I think the important thing to note is both the Secretary and I will have to have a conversation with the President of the United States tonight. I think Leader Schumer and Speaker Pelosi are having a discussion right now on whether it's worth coming back. We're willing to stay engaged, but I can tell you that the differences are still significant.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Did the President talk to the speaker, or was he just talking to you?
Just to us.
No, so I'm not, I don't need to change